Hi, Ann Cornick from Paintnporcelain. I'm here to teach beginners how to get started in China painting and also to recruit experienced painters to paint along with me. And today we're going to do the final fire on our strawberries. And these are our strawberries that I did. This is my second fire, just so you can see what it turned out like. We're going to get started with the final fire, but before we do, I kind of want to explain to beginners what a final fire is. Now, usually, well, obviously you need a first fire because you have to get the image on your piece. And most people will put on a second fire too. Not everybody, it depends how dark your first fire goes on and whether or not you want any background or how you want your piece to look. But usually it's a first and a second fire because when you put it in the kiln, things do, after your first fire, things do kind of fade out. And the same thing with after your second fire. But, if your second fire comes out like this piece, and you're happy with it, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. You don't have to do anything more to this piece if you don't want to. But the things that I normally consider when I decide if I want to add anything more to the piece for a final fire, and I'm going to show you how I do that this week, is it's the background. Do I want to change the background? Make it darker, add more color, make it lighter, well, or try to make it lighter. Then those are the kinds of things I would do. The other thing is depth. Do you want to add a little depth here? Do you want to maybe make this leaf go under a little more, that one there? Does this one have enough depth down here? Do you need to tweak anything? You can also add pen work. And what I normally do is if I don't know what to do next, I usually take my piece and let it set out. Here's an example. I did this little box. This is the bottom of it. It's white velvet, and then we did luster over it, and it has enamel on it. Well, when I put the luster over it, it turned yellow a little bit. I didn't know whether I should try to put color over this. I don't think I should because then the luster disappears. It might just be a learning experience for me. But I also didn't know what I wanted to put on top. So I left it set out, and eventually I'll figure that out. So these are things you can do to kind of help yourself determine when your piece is done or if you can still do a little work on it. And don't forget, whatever work you do on it, if you don't like it, you can wipe it off. So for beginners, just to recap, when you get your piece as close to the way you want it as possible, usually after the second fire, fire it and then leave it. And you can either experiment on it and try some of the things I'll show you today, or you can just wipe them off and leave it the way it is and be perfectly happy with it. Nothing says that you have to do a piece to look exactly like somebody else's piece. So here's my piece. And one of the things that I've decided I'm definitely going to do is add a little bit of, a little more brown into the background around this area. I like things dark. I'm using rich brown. If you don't like things dark, you don't have to do this. Now, first thing I'm doing is kind of cutting in underneath these leaves because I don't really want to get the leaves in this. And then I'm doing these little C strokes to help pull that out into the background because I have brown there already. I just want to make it a little darker, and I really don't want to go any further than I already have. I'm also going to take my brown and go under here and make this a little darker in through here. And you see, you can use the brown to cut in. Can you see how I've cut in on that? Yes, I think you can. And it makes a big difference. And then you just sort of feather it out. And then you remember you have to turn the piece to feather it. Now, let me get a little more brown up right in here. I think I could use it. Yeah. Remember, if you don't like this, after you've tried it, you can wipe it off. You don't have to keep it. This is just my personal preference. So that's what I've done so far down there. The other thing I want to do is add a little brown down in through here because I like people's eye to go to this part of the piece. It's the focal part of the piece. Even if you're skittish about doing that last, putting that last little extra color on there, I think if you do, you may find that you like it better or not. Okay, And now I'm going to put a little more brown up in here, because I know what I want to do here. Now I may go over this little flower, and I'm really not going to worry about it if I do. Don't forget, I'm painting on a, this is a non-glare, kind of a satin finish tile. So that's one of the reasons why you will see that I have to use a little more oil. It's like painting on something that's been tinted already. I use a little more oil on this than I normally do. This is a satin kind of thing. And the reason I did it is because for demonstrating, especially on something like this, when I paint on this china, it actually comes out a little darker than it normally would, because the paint grabs a lot nicer. If you're having trouble getting your paint to, you know, getting the paint dark enough, you might want to consider tinting a tile. And when you tint, you take an ivory, like a neutral color, or tint your plate, and you put it on, and you use those hash, you know, you put it on as if you're doing a background, and you use the hash stroke, the very light one where it's like on the back of your hand. If you barely feel it, you know you're doing it right. And that will terrifically help make your paint darker when you apply it, because you fire that, you put the paint on, you put like an ivory. Some people use, if you know your piece, like this one, I would have put yellow on because I wanted my background to have a yellowish tone. You put the color on and then fire it, and then the next time you paint. So basically you have a tile that just has a color on it. Okay, now I'm just putting a little brown down here, only because I kind of want it to drizzle down a little bit. And maybe drizzle over this way a little bit. I just don't want it to stop suddenly. Okay, so you don't have to do this, but if you did, that gives you an idea of where my focal point is up there. Okay, now I'm going to do my leaves. I like the old gold green. That's the color I kind of forgot about. It was a color I had years ago. That we used to use a lot, and I had kind of forgotten about it. So now that I've got my background in the way I want it, I'm going to experiment with my leaves a little, and I'm just going to put, here, let me get it. I'm going to side load with the old gold green, and I'm just going to go down the middle and the shadowy side of the leaf, and then down here where they meet, there would be a natural shadow, so I'm going to add a little there too. It's not a lot. It doesn't have to be a lot. Oops, looks like I needed to cut in right here. There. Okay, so I'm going to do that again. Take the old gold green, and I'm going to add it down under here. And because I added that there, can you see the difference? I mean, it's unbelievable. When you do this, it just gives you a little more depth. And then if you think it's just too much depth, you don't have to do it. But I added it here, down the middle. Oops, down the middle. And I think I want a little on the end. So let me put a little on the end here. I like to accent the ends of some of these. There. I did that, and I did this one down underneath. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. Now remember, the sun's coming this way across. So if I want to start by putting in my shadow, I'm going to put it on this side of the leaf or flower first, or whatever I'm working on. And then I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to say, I know from looking at this that I'd also like a little over on this side, only because, like I said before, they come together in that point, at this point right here. And I want to make sure that because they come together there, I get kind of a natural shadow, and I want to make sure that shadow shows, so there. But I just did a little bit. And then I'm going to put a little on the ends here. There we go. And I'm going to have to pull out these ends. Sometimes when you put the background on, it hides the There we go. It hides the cutouts of, because these leaves are very choppy and pointed on the ends. So you do want to make sure that as much as possible, you get them back to that real pretty kind of choppiness. All right. And then I'm going to go back in and I'm going to fix up this little flower that's up at the top here because he got really squished. I'll come in close so you can see. I'm using my wedge eraser. It's a wedge on this end and it's blunt on this end. And I'm just going back in and doing this. I'm just pulling the background out of the flower so the flower shows. Then if you have a little brush, get my number 1 here, you can go in and smooth that a little bit so it's not so, you don't see lines. And then I'm just going to add a little more yellow back into the center of this flower. There. Okay. So now I think I want a little color on the berries. Change my brush. I'm going for my 1/4 inch, the one with the metal ferrule at the bottom. And I'm going to take a little bit of the blood red and a little bit of the brown, just a little bit of the brown. And I'm going to see how it looks, but I'm going to try to, here we go, hang on here. Mix them together, and I'm going to try to come along this side here. A little more oil. Like I said, this tile requires a lot more oil than a lot of other things do. Oops, that's a little heavy. Way heavy. So I'm going to pull it across and add a little up in here. See if that helps. It does a little bit. Maybe make it a little redder over on this side here. Kind of balance it off. And then this one here is a little under too. The first one. That's kind of under this one. I made that one on top. So I'm going to add a little brown to my, because brown is the overall color here. If you, the browns and the golds and that kind of thing. To my blood red and just add it there. And then take a little more blood red and put at the base here. Just to clean it up a little bit. And then finally, this one. Now, it's obviously lighter because it's in the middle. You don't want it too dark. But I do need to, if you can see down here, the paint's a little smushed, I guess. So, and over on that side, I wanted to even it out a little more. So I did. So these are things you can do on a final fire. And if you don't like them, wipe them off. You're not stuck with this, you know. But make sure that before you do this, you fire whatever you have that you like, because you don't want to, I'm using yellow red now, by the way, on this one. You don't want to add it and then wish you hadn't and mess up some work that you've already done that you really like. Okay, so I've got those 3 pretty well. I would also, where's my brush? Oh, here it is. I would also put a little of this antique or the gold green. I'm using the old gold again, and I'm just accenting these at the bottom. So there you go. And I'm maybe going to put a little on this side here. Okay. All right. So now I've decided that's about enough. I could do these and I could do this down here, but why? You don't want them all the same. And now I'm going to do the border. You don't do everything on this firing. I mean, you don't need to do this. You don't need to do this. I like the color of the background. It's personal preference. If you wanted to add more color down in here to balance this color, you could. I'm pretty happy with it, so I'm leaving it. Well, actually, I shouldn't have said that. I'm looking at it now and I'm thinking that's probably not a bad idea. going to take a little yellow brown, just see what it looks like down here. Now this is what I mean by experimenting. So you put a little yellow brown down in here. And you know me, I'm a sloppy painter. I just put the color on and work it in. There. And then up in here, I want it to fade out. I don't know, what do you think? Did the extra color down there help? It may have. And I probably should put a little up in this way. And maybe a little over in this way. Oh, come here. So, yeah. Try it. If you like it, great. If you hate it, wipe it off. Wipe it off, because I need a little more here. There. That kind of frames it. I kind of like to frame it. So, yeah, I think I do. I did need it. I didn't even know. And I added it, and I'm pretty happy with it now. Okay. So now I'm going to do the edge. First thing I'm going to do is kind of wipe off the edge a little bit just to make sure I don't, and I've cleaned my brush and gotten all the turpentine off, because otherwise it's going to bleed into that background. And then I'm going to take, for me, although this is going to leave dust, so you have to get the dust off, I'm just going to wipe it with a tissue, because I just don't want it to bleed into the background and mess me up. And up here, right there, I've got it over the edge. There. You could use whatever you have handy to get it off like that. And then I'm going to look at the background. And like right here, it's a little light. The rest of it, I don't think it's too bad, but that bugs me a little bit. And down here in this corner, it bothers me a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to take, this is that big shader that I had. It's a 1/2 inch. It's a flat. And I'm just going to clean it off, go into my green that I've chosen for my background, and I'm just going to kind of even off that background where I need to. And here I think I need to. Can you see how I'm doing this? May not look like it to you, but I really thought it needed it there. And up here where it's a little bit light, and you can definitely see that it's light. Okay, so that's good enough for now, because we are on limited time. I don't want to take your whole day. So what I'm going to do now is, I'm setting this down, oops, over there. I'm going to get my pen. I'm going to take the French green, and I'm going to do a very simple border for beginners, so that those of you that want to try this, it couldn't be easier. Let me show you what I'm going to do with it and why I think it helps. So, I don't know if you can see, but I took some mixed paint. I'm taking my palette knife. I'm dipping it into, this is Easy Flow. It's from Dallas, China. And it's an Easy Flow oil, AMP5, it says on it. And I'm mixing it with the paint. You can also mix it with powder paint until it gets kind of soupy. It's supposed to drip from the end. This is just like forming a drop. There, you saw it drip? Okay, so that's the right consistency. I'm just going to whip it up and flip it over. You kind of need to keep it grouped. And I'm going to use my pen. The border that I'm going to do, so let me show you. This is, you see how my border is just, it like goes in and out and in and out. And it's just not really nicely finished off. There's a little mark there. There's a couple little things here and there. I'm going to take my pen and I'm going to do this border. And Janie, this is a border you could do very easily. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do dot dash. So let me show you on the tile here that's clean. I'm going to do a dash. I'm going to make this very exaggerated so you can see it. Ugh. Okay. I'm going to do a dash, and then a dot, and then a dash, and then a dot, and then a dash, and then a dot. This is a very slippery tile, but you get the idea. Here, I'm going to come really close so you can see it. Oops. Right there. I don't even know if you can tell. It's kind of close, kind of too close. Yeah, but that's what I'm going to put around my border. I think this is a little soupy. I'm going to take a little more paint and mix in. There we go. Okay, so that's what I'm doing around my border. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to do a dash, dot, dash, dot. And I told you I was going for kind of a 30s look on this. So that's what I've done so far. And I'm just going to go all the way around like that using my pen. And what it will do is it will just oops. It'll take your eye away from all the flaws. I got to put it down, sorry. That's not working. And if it doesn't work, you just wipe it off. Okay. I'm going to have to balance this because it's not easy to do and hold up. And there, can you see there where I did it too? And it just makes for a really cute little border. Very easy. I see this in a kitchen, and so I see that as kind of a kitchen-y border. And if you do have a problem where it starts to run or smear on you, take a Q-tip, just pull out that section and go back in and correct it. Now, at some point, you want to make sure that you end up with enough, you know, so that you don't end up in the middle of, oops, the middle of one. So I kind of start from both ends and work my way to the middle. And I tried to do this a little bit more in the yellow, and I know it's uneven, but I just wanted you to be able to see it a little better if I did it up in the yellow. See there? So I know it's uneven, but I wanted to make sure that you could see what I did. And so when this is done now, I'm just going to take and fire it. The other thing I might do is I might take my pen, clean it out, a new nub on it too. Make sure that your nubs are not broken or don't have a problem with them. Sometimes they do, you don't even know it. And then you go, if it's really giving you a hard time, either your oil is a problem, and it took me years to learn how to use a pen. I was horrible at it. And you either have not enough oil or too much oil. You know if it's too much, it spreads. But the other thing is that you might want to experiment with it and just really get used to using your pen. I always test it by just dotting it on my tile before I do it. And here, see how these little strawberries have those little divots in them, the little seeds? I'm just gonna do them all. You think, why the heck is she doing them all? Okay, I did them all. And then I'm going to go back with like a fine brush and kind of make sure that they're not overly heavy. See how some of these here are heavy and light, heavy and light? If I want to make it a little lighter, just use a dry brush. You don't have to put it in anything. A liner would be good, and just pull it down, pull the color down a little, get it out of there, just so it's not quite so You may have to use a little bit of turpentine if it's fighting you. That one was fighting me, so. And then that way your little strawberries are not, they have the little dots, but they aren't. And you can also use your finger. This is another technique a teacher of mine told me. She says, take your finger, like this one, rub it on your jeans, or on a piece of clothing, or on a paper towel. So you kind of get rid of the fingerprint, and then just, I find the little one probably works best, but you can just dab. And you have to wipe it off from now and then, but it will also help you at the end, like where you're trying to get your colors to sort of blend. You can just use your finger, tapping it lightly, and a lot of times that's all you need too. If it were me, I would probably go around here now, and I would just do a little bit of, maybe not the whole leaf, but up in here, for instance, I want this to pop a little more. I would just line it a little bit, and that would also help bring it out a little. And down in here, you want to make sure you have all your little twigs and everything. This comes down and spins around, this little guy. If you want, you could take and put a little shadow on the side of it. And this is a very subtle shadow if you use the brown and just on with the pen. Oops, that's not very subtle. Okay. See how I did it down in there? You could do that if you wanted to. So it just depends where you want. You know, you could do a little down the middle. Oops, here we go. You could take the pen and go a little down here. Just give a little bit of veins. You see how I did the veins there? And if you don't like it, take your brush, go back over and just pull them back in. You're never stuck with anything you experiment with. If you don't like it, you can always get rid of it. This is what we've done. I'm going to finish it by going around the edges with a little dot dash. I hope that gave you some ideas of some little borders that you can at least try for a beginner. That's a very easy border. I have this really nice trivet, and I'm going to take the tile and put it in the trivet like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Keep painting. I hope you enjoyed the program, and I hope you'll take a minute to subscribe so that other people can learn more about China painting and we can get the word out to more people. You also can look at the links below. My Paintnporcelain.com website has a lot of freebies and printables for new and experienced painters, as well as studies, supplies, and even some of my hand-painted china. So thank you again, and I'll see you next time.